Hello everybody, this is Mr. Rob and welcome back to another episode of the Washington Commanders franchise here on Madden NFL 24, where we reached the end of another season and our Commanders did not make the playoffs. So we're just going to recap the year and sim through the playoffs, maybe give my predictions of what I think is going to happen and get all the way up to the Super Bowl, technically the Pro Bowl week, and then we will finish up the year in the next episode. This is the last season in the Commanders franchise as well, so we are wrapping up what was a kind of bad ending in a way, but sometimes that's just how it goes. I apologize in advance if my voice is a little raspy. I am recording this early in the morning, but I hope you guys are ready for this episode, ready for more football content with EA Sports College Football 25 on the horizon, and I cannot wait to get that started. But we got to wrap up Madden. I hope you guys are ready for this one. If you are, make sure you drop a like and you subscribe down below, especially if you want more franchise content. As let's get into today's episode. First off, you can see the Commanders. We know we did not have a good year. Finished 3-14. A lot of the ranks at the bottom are in the last spots. I would not look at yards per game though, just because again that is skewed. But points per game, we were in the bottom half of the league, and then defensive points per game, we were dead last. So we were not a good team this year. We'll go through the schedule, kind of see how it unfolded for your Washington Commanders. We start off with a bad loss against Carolina, 40-9, but then we did bounce back and beat the Eagles 27-24, which early on in the season looked like a pretty good win, and it was a come-from-behind victory with our backup undrafted quarterback. So we were looking pretty solid. We did not know the Eagles were not a good team this year at this point. And then we proceeded to lose 5 straight games. We lost to the Colts in a tough one, lost to the Texans by 5, got beat down pretty good by the 49ers, lost to the Seahawks, and then lost to the Titans by a game that was in heartbreaking fashion, missed the go-ahead field goal at the buzzer to win the game. And it was during this stretch we really realized that Penix Jr. was just a turnover machine, just throwing the football all over the place, interceptions. It was not a good start for the season. We did finally win against the Cardinals, though, as we beat them 27-13, a pretty solid win. Then we lost our next two. We lost to the Cowboys by 22. We got doubled up by the Eagles, who we got earlier. But then out of nowhere, not out of nowhere, but we fired Eric Bieniemy. We hired Leslie Frazier to be our interim head coach. And in this first game, we beat the Giants 20-16. Ended up being a pretty good playoff team this year. They won our division. So it was like, was that the turn of the century? And it was not. We lost the rest of our games. We lost to the Rams. We got beat down bad by the Packers. The offense was horrible. Had a bye week and then lost our last 4 against the Browns, the Giants again, the Jaguars in a tough game. And then we just got destroyed by the Cowboys. Their defense decided to not cover anybody. Which brings us to that 3-14 record. And if you see how that stacks up around the league, we were the second to worst team. Only the Lions had a worse record than us, and they got, I guess, the tiebreak. So we would have the number 2 overall pick. Fortunately for the Lions, they were the worst team. They don't even own their first round pick. That would be the Chargers, who had the number 1 pick thanks to the Cade Klubnik trade in the draft a couple of years ago. But the best teams in the league were the Chiefs and the Vikings. They are the clear top 2 seeds. We'll go by division. Starting off in the AFC, it was the Steelers who won 11-6. I feel like their record was better than 11-6. I feel like they won a lot of tough games, so I don't think that tells the whole story. The Ravens were 9-8. They also got in the playoffs. The Bengals just miss out. They can't defend their Super Bowl championship, but they lost on the final week of the season. And the Browns, they were the worst team last year, and they went 8-9 this year. In the AFC South, the Jaguars won that division. They are 11-6. The Colts dropped from grace. They were the 2 seed last year, and they go 8-9 this year. Texans 6-11, Titans 6-11. In the AFC East, the Jets were the best team in this division. They were the biggest surprise of the season, in my opinion. I did not have the Jets being one of the top teams in the AFC, and they went 13-4 behind second-year quarterback Drew Allar. They were really good. The Dolphins bounced back. They got in the playoffs 10-7 after what was a horrible tenure to the end of the Mike McDaniel era. Buffalo Bills did not make it. They won their final 4 games, but it just wasn't enough. If Buffalo would have made the playoffs, I do think they could have been a force to be reckoned with, but fortunately for all the other AFC teams, they did not. Patriots were probably the biggest disappointment of the year. They traded for Jalen Hurts at the beginning of the season, and they only went 4-13. They give their first round pick to the Eagles, who will have 2 top picks in the top 5. AFC West, the Chiefs were the best team, 15-2. The Raiders behind rookie quarterback Malachi Nelson get an 11-6 wild card spot. Chargers are 9-8, and the Broncos were at 7-10. In the NFC, the Vikings won that division single-handedly. The Bears were 7-10, the Packers were 7-10, and the Lions, the aforementioned 3-14. NFC South was the Panthers leading the way. They went 11-6. This was a tough race down the stretch. Saints get in as a wild card, 9-8. The Falcons also 9-8. And the Buccaneers 6-11. They were the NFC champions last year. They don't get in. I think it's the first time since Super Bowl 50 where the Panthers and Broncos play that both representatives do not make the postseason the next year. And then our division, it was the Giants who win the division 12-5. They have a better division record than the Cowboys, who are also 12-5. The Eagles 4-13, and then we were, of course, 3-14. And in the West, it was the Rams who won this division, even though everybody was under 500. The 49ers, they should have taken this division, but they did not. And the Seahawks are also 8-9, but the Rams get the tiebreaker, and then the Cardinals were 4-13, which takes us to the bracket, which we'll take a look at the playoff bracket at the end of the episode. But let's take a look at our stats, our player stats, and just kind of see where we stacked up around the league. Penix Jr. starting off the quarterback was just not good. 4,300 yards, 14 touchdowns to 32 interceptions. Just way too many turnovers, especially early on in the season. Now I think he's kind of proven in his 2 seasons as starter that, he is not the starter of the future. He was okay his first season as a starter, but he got hurt, and then he hasn't been the same ever since then. He was very bad this year. Rushing-wise, he did have his first career rushing touchdown. He's a lot more active on the ground, but definitely be looking for a replacement quarterback. Dave Atkinson had a good story against the Eagles win, but other than that, he was pretty bad. And then we signed Mariota just to be a veteran backup for the last couple weeks of the season. Rushing, Devin Singletary led the way with 1,500 yards and 12 touchdowns. He was our workhorse on the ground, our superstar halfback who we definitely leaned on and showed out. Ever since we've acquired him, he's been very good for us. 1,200 yards and 10 touchdowns, 1,004, and he got hurt that season. And then this year, his best season to date. Fortunately, Antonio Gibson got hurt. He was having a pretty solid season, 511 yards, 5 touchdowns. I am looking to move on from his contract. He has 1 more year on it since we signed him to an extension, I think after year 1 in the franchise. So I was going to look to move him. If not trade him, then probably cut him. But he was good while it lasted. I actually did enjoy Antonio Gibson. And then Penix had a rushing touchdown. The Tevin Swede, the rookie out of Florida State, had one in the penultimate game of the season. He played pretty well in a little bit of reserve once Gibson got hurt. Receiving, it was the Terry McLaurin show, as it usually is. 102 receptions, 1,500 yards, 7 touchdowns. The touchdown numbers were a little bit down for his standards, but this whole franchise, McLaurin has been an absolute beast. The true number 1 of this team. That's why we locked him up to such a massive contract last season. And that was kind of our downfall. We just did not get McLaurin, another receiver. We just let all of our guys go. And, Dockery was second. He was okay. He picked it up down the stretch, but, he's a former 7th round pick out of USC. Only 1 touchdown. Johnny Wilson didn't take the next step, in my opinion. 69 for 677 and 2 scores. I was hoping the big 6'7" star receiver could actually do something now that he was the true number 2. And he did not. His averages were way down. He dropped a lot of passes, and he just didn't take that next step. Devin Singletary had 551 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns. Tight end was just kind of all over the place this year. I tried starting all 3 guys basically, and nobody really stepped out. Noah Clancy had 37 for 377. He had his fair share of drops. Eric Ali started off reliable, but he was not towards the end. He had 38 for 323 and a touchdown. Then Calvin Easley, who I would have probably given more of a chance next year, 4 for 59. He was our 2nd round pick out of TCU this season. He was a hidden Denver player. So I'd like to see, maybe going into next year, what Easley could do. And then Gibson had 195 yards receiving. And then Sean Long with a touchdown, a former UTSA wide receiver, but definitely needed more out of the receiving core this year. Blocking was a disaster. Yes, Penix played bad, but our positions, our offensive line was horrible as well. Tyron Smith was a good left tackle. He's one of our biggest signings, but he just gets hurt all the time. He only played in 10 games this year. I would almost say half those games he got injured at some point, so just not reliable. He's supposed to be our superstar left tackle, and he is when he's on the field. When he's not, our backup was Alfonso Kim for the 2nd straight season. He's been terrible, so definitely needed to get some depth at left tackle. Left guard, we signed Elijah Wilkinson to be a starter. He was not good. He was also out with some injury for some of the time, so we played Cooper Hodges, who was not much better, but at least was better, I guess, but definitely not good at left guard. Center was okay. Stromberg was probably his weakest season at center. He's usually been pretty sturdy. He's definitely better in pass game than he is in run game, though. We do have good depth behind him, then Carl Bush and Bryce Foster, who didn't really see much playing time this season. Right guard, we acquired Christopher Franklin in the Cameron Curl trade to be our starting right guard. And I thought he was just okay. I kind of expected a little bit better of him. I thought he was going to solidify that position that's kind of been bad for us this season, but he didn't really, and he got hurt some. So he's still much to prove it there. Braden Daniels started some games early on. He was not good. We drafted Drew Hansen out of Ole Miss in the draft. He was not that great either, despite the fact that he's only a rookie, but hoping that Christopher Franklin could be that guy. And then right tackle Rob Havenstein was pretty awful. He even got hurt at the end of the season. Gary Heller, the rookie out of Minnesota, was okay in his one start, but the offensive line as a whole was bad this year. And that's something that I think, especially as the Commanders, you need to fix, especially, if you're known for such a good run game and offensive line in the past. Now you can't even rely on it. So maybe you just need to go back to our roots with the offensive line. On defense, the leading tackler was Drew Tranquil. Obviously, a lot of these numbers are inflated again just because I do play on longer quarters. Well, I play on true quarters, but Madden Sim doesn't really respect that for other teams. So Tranquil did lead the way, though. I really did like Tranquil. I thought he was an underrated signing for us after the first season. I thought when I gave him the 3-year contract, he would be, maybe a little bit of a overpay. But I think in those 3 years, he actually played pretty good. Now, he is a free agent after this year, and he is older, past 30, so he's probably going to continue to regress. So I probably wouldn't extend him. But Drew Tranquil's time in Washington, I thought was pretty good. Jeremiah Trotter had 133 tackles. He would have led the team, but he got hurt. Unfortunately, when he got hurt, our middle of the field was badly missed. He has definitely been our best draft pick so far in this series. His zone coverage is getting there, but I do like Jeremiah Trotter a lot. He is very valuable to the defense. And then Jatavius Martin had 104 tackles. He's pretty underrated, I would say, as a free safety. I don't think he makes enough plays. We did give up quite a bit of deep passes this year, so maybe I would like to see him step up more. But I do like Jatavius Martin in the center of the field. Let's go into sacks now. Your sack leader this year was Jerron Payne, which is a little bit surprising because Jerron Payne has been quiet stat-wise in this series, and I'm glad he finally got his numbers because I've been saying that Jerron Payne is a good defensive lineman, but he just eats up a lot of blocks for guys like Allen, Young, and Sweat to get to the quarterback. And this year, Payne actually did 12.5 sacks. That is his most ever as a player, and he just signed an extension, so I think it helps his case out because he's going to get paid a lot of money. Second on the team, also double digits, was Montez Sweat. He had 12, and he also got hurt for a bit of the season, so that's impressive for him. We locked him up to an extension. We also extended Chase Young, which is always, it's just been weird. Chase Young has produced for this team, and it's always like, do you give him the extension? We did. He had 11.5 sacks. There was a couple of games he just straight took over, which kind of won us those 2 out of 3 games, so I think he's definitely a valuable asset to the team. Allen's numbers went down this year, the 2-time reigning NFL Defensive Player of the Year, so I don't think you get that job, but Allen's still a force, especially in the run game. 47 TFLs, that's absurd. Anzalone had 5 sacks, but I don't think he was as good as the numbers show. He very much lacked in pass coverage. Tranquil had 3, Trotter had 2, Riggs had a 1.5. Which, speaking of which, let's go into the secondary. Leading the way in interceptions was L'Jarius Sneed. He had 3, and this is a very interesting time for our secondary because we've been relying on the same names a lot, and I have liked them, but 2 of them are over 30, and our top 3 corners are all free agents this offseason. So it's like, who do you bring back? Sneed says he wants to stay, but he's kind of the guy we traded for in the Eric Bieniemy era. And I don't know if he's really going to fit in with what our new coach wants to do. He has 3 touchdowns or 3 interceptions his past 3 seasons, but he's getting older, and I think his speed is kind of lackluster. Tranquil had 2 interceptions, Trotter had 1, Martin had 1, Forbes had 1. He's the free agent that I think I would like to bring back. However, he's the free agent that the most does not want to stay back. You can see his numbers and his impacts are not high, so it costs some money to bring him back, and I don't know if I want to pay that money. But we have seen in the past when I don't pay some of these guys, we get worse. Our defense has gotten worse. I haven't paid Yamin Davis in the past. I haven't paid, our wide receivers as well, and it's kind of hurt us. So is Forbes that guy you bring back, even though you had a little bit of down season, in my opinion. The other corner is Kendall Fuller. He did not have an interception this year. He's been very reliable this season or this series, but definitely took a step back this year. Gave up some deep balls, got beat in some routes, specifically in the later half of the season. Also a free agent after this one, and the longtime Washington Commander. Is his time finally up? I think maybe it will be. And then we do have Desmond Ricks, who was our first round pick last year, who didn't play as much this year. I want to see him take the field more next year because I really do like him. He is star dev. I didn't reveal that, but that's what he has. I wish he would have had superstar, but I think his ratings are really, really good. So I think Desmond Ricks is worthy of more playing time next season, which helps a little bit with all three of our corners being free agents. Lastly, at strong safety, we had Richard Amos start off Cameron Curl, but we dealt him at the trade deadline. And I thought Amos was all right. I think he could have showed more. Former second-round pick out of Louisville, who does have star dev. So, is obviously was going to be worse than Cameron Curl. Maybe with more playing time, and as a full season as a starter next year, maybe Amos could take that step up. But I think strong safety is definitely a position that we're still a little thin on, a little shaky on. We also did sign Jordan Poyer, who had some familiarity with Leslie Frazier in Buffalo, to be a backup strong safety. And I thought he was good. I thought he was a good veteran signing. I don't know if he'll stick around, but he did his purpose. I do want to take a look at one last player on defense, and that's for the Falcons, Cameron Curl, who we traded at the deadline. He ended up with 102 tackles, 1 sack, and 1 interception. He definitely had that interception as a Falcon. And yeah, he's a top 5 strong safety in the league, but I thought we had to get some value for him. We were not good. I think he is a free agent now. He has 1 more year in his contract. But we traded him to the Falcons. He had a really good season. He had a really good tenure with the Commanders as well. I do wish him all the best. Kicking was a struggle for us. Let me go back to the Commanders. Cameron Little did not have a good season. 80% of his kicks. He missed 3 extra points. He had never missed an extra point in his career. And if you take a look at his numbers, they've gone down every year. 96%, 86%, 80%. So, I definitely think he is fighting for a job next year. Kicking was atrocious this year, and it did not help that, we get some of these drives that would end in points, and he would miss. And it was just, we can't have that. And then Logan Aldridge was just there as a punter. I'll probably just bring in another punter next year like I usually do. We did have 1 kick return touchdown. Greg Ray had it, the rookie out of William & Mary, which is good. I'd like to see him more as a receiver next year maybe. He's got some good speed, and he could help us out. So that does it with our stats. Let's take a look at the league leaders real quick, and see who led the league in a lot of categories. Start off with passing, which of course is Patrick Mahomes, who had 4,700 yards, 42 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. He really could be MVP again this season. Prescott was second. A lot of those numbers were against us. And then Caleb Williams, he's really transcended into that superstar quarterback, and he's got the Steelers looking like a team for the playoffs and potentially the Super Bowl. Trevor Lawrence had a good year. He could also get MVP in my opinion. Drake May was good for the Rams, but he just threw a lot of interceptions, 39-14. Penix Jr.'s up there despite his numbers. Bo Nix for the Vikings. And then we see Joe Burrow up next, Shedeur Sanders, Quinn Ewers, some of the next crop of quarterbacks reaching the top of the league. Your passing touchdowns leader was Trevor Lawrence with 44. A couple guys with 40. Mahomes had 42. Purdy had 41, last year's MVP. Ritter had 41 for the Falcons, and I wouldn't sleep on the Falcons. They're a 7th seed in this playoffs. They have a good defense, and Ritter had a quiet good season. And then Burrow also has 4. Interception leader is not going to be a surprise. It's going to be Michael Penix Jr. The next guy was Kyler Murray, and then we have Cade Klubnik, who did not have a good first full season with the Lions. May, Sanders, and Mac Jones have 14. Your rushing leader is Josh Jacobs. He has 1,600 yards and 15 touchdowns. Behind him is Taylor with 15 and 23 touchdowns. That looks like Offensive Player of the Year numbers to me. Then we have Singletary, 3rd, and then Breece Hall, the Jets. Christian McCaffrey, the 49ers. Nick Chubb, all up there. Touchdown leader, I'm assuming it's, Jonathan Taylor with 23. Pollard had 17. Pacheco, 16, and a couple of guys with 15. Receiving-wise, the receiving leader was McLaurin with 1,570 yards, followed by CeeDee Lamb with 1,400, and then Christian Kirk. But your receptions leader looks like it's going to be Jordan Pickens with 128 receptions and 10 touchdowns. Good year for him. Jay Jetta's also up there. Your highest tight end, I would assume, would have to be Travis Kelce. It usually is. Yep, there he is. 1,100 yards. Touchdown-wise, it was Christian Kirk who had 15, and Brandon Ayuk, who's always at the top. He has a ton of career touchdowns. Is there any way to look up how many career touchdowns from this screen that Ayuk has? Because it is absurd. He's really turned it on the past few seasons. And then we'll go down. Rashee Rice with 14, Chase with 13, and Wan'Dale Robinson with 13. Jawan Johnson's your leading tight end with touchdowns with 12. On defense, we'll see who the worst sack guy is. It was Tegra Tishabola of the Cardinals. They did not have a good line this year in front of Murray. Your tackles leader was Fred Warner with 149. TFLs was Jonathan Allen by a wide margin. Then you got DeForest Buckner. Sack leader was Micah Parsons, who had 19.5, a career high for him. He could potentially win another Defensive Player of the Year award, in my opinion. Quentin Willis had 16.5. Max Crosby had 16.5 as well. And the interception leader was Miles Jack with 6, and Fred Warner with 6. 2 linebackers. Corners had 5. Andrew Booth, Caleb Downs, and Byron Murphy. Kicking, we know how much we were bad at kicking this year. Joey Slye probably had the highest percentage per kick, which is good for him, the former Washington Commander. Punt, nothing really there. Kick return, we know we had 1, and we know Zach Bass of the Vikings had 1, 101 yards in his only return. Don't know why he didn't keep that job. And then punt returns, there were 1 this year with Stephon Diggs, one of his 2, getting it done in that category. But that does it for the stats portion episode. This last part, we'll take a look at the playoffs. Here is what the bracket looks like. On the AFC side of things, it is the Chiefs the 1, the Jets the 2, the Steelers the 3, the Jaguars the 4, Raiders 5, Miami Dolphins 6, and Baltimore Ravens 7. On the NFC, it is the Vikings who get the 1 seed, the Giants are the 2, the Panthers are the 3, the Rams the 4, Cowboys 5, Saints 6, and Falcons 7th. We're going to simulate to the Super Bowl, see who will be participating in that. I will bring the Super Bowl in the next episode. But before we get to the Super Bowl sim, here's what my predictions look like. I like to do this. I like to, give a short little thing of what I think is going to happen and then watch as it completely blows up in my face. But here's what I have. I have the Chiefs beating the Falcons in the Super Bowl. Yes, I have the 7 seed Falcons going to the Super Bowl. Madden, a lot of the times, does have a low seed, usually go pretty far, and in my opinion, it's the Falcons. They have a good defense. They have Desmond Ridder, and I think that could lead them to the Super Bowl. Now, on the AFC side of things, it's pretty chalk. I do have the Raiders beating the Jaguars, though, in the first round. But then I have the 1 Chiefs and the 3 Steelers. I just don't know if the Jets are quite ready for that spot. And I am very high on the Steel City, but the Chiefs get it done. The AFC, usually my pick over there. Then the NFC side of things, there's no 49ers, which is usually the team I go with. But I think it's going to be a little more chaotic. I think the Falcons will beat the Giants, which will be the big upset. And then I also think the Cowboys will beat the Rams. Yes, it's a lower seed matchup, but the Rams are under 500, so I'm not sure if that's entirely a upset. But then I have the Cowboys also beating the Panthers in the divisional round, facing the Falcons, and then Atlanta gets it done to the Super Bowl. And then I have Kansas City beating the Super Bowl. But that's my predictions. Yeah, let's go ahead and see if the playoff predictions blow up in my face. I'll simulate round by round. I'll show you the bracket until we get to the Super Bowl. All right, after 1 round of the playoffs, here is what happens. The Raiders beat the Jags. I was completely right. Oh my gosh, across the board. I got every single prediction right in the wild card. I don't think I've ever done that. The Raiders beat the Jaguars. The Chiefs beat the Ravens. And the Steelers beat the Dolphins. Then the Cowboys did beat the Rams. The Falcons did upset the Giants. And the Panthers did beat the Saints. So I got an entire round right. Let's go through the divisional round, see if that continues. So our conference championship game, it is the Jets and the Raiders. So I did get that wrong. I got both wrong. Man, big upsets. The Chiefs go down to Las Vegas, and the Jets, they're for real. They beat the Steelers. The Vikings do beat the Falcons. There's my representative there. And the Cowboys do beat the Panthers. I only got 1 of these 4 right. That's more like it. So is it going to be Jets, Raiders, Vikings, Cowboys in the Super Bowl? Let's find out with 1 more sim. All right, and our Super Bowl matchup will be the Vikings and the Jets. The Jets beat the Raiders, and the Cowboys get beat in the championship 1 away. So the Minnesota Vikings are legit. They're in the Super Bowl facing the New York Jets in a battle of young quarterbacks. This will be a very fun Super Bowl to watch, in my opinion. We'll take a look at both teams real quick. As the NFC side of things, it was the Jets who got to this point. They have a good defense. Quentin Williams, Sauce Gardner, a lot of good players on that front. Evan Stewart was a great draft pick. Drew Allar has really awoken as a quarterback, proving that he was the number 1 pick. That's a good Jets team, with a lot of depth, some veterans mixed in there as well. And if we go to the Vikings, they're led by Justin Jefferson, Aaron Donald again. He's still kicking over there in Minnesota. They're trying to get him 1 Super Bowl, and we'll see if they can get it done against the New York Jets. Bo Nix has officially turned into a superstar quarterback. This is a toss-up matchup. I don't know who will win this. If I had to give my prediction, I do think it is going to be the New York Jets. I think they'll get their 2nd Super Bowl in franchise history. Next episode, we will watch it, though, in Super Bowl 61. I'll also show you the Pro Bowl rosters. I don't want to do that yet. We'll save that for next video. But thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure you drop a like and you subscribe down below, especially if you want more franchise content. This is Mr. Rob, and I'll see you in the next one.